Coming up next is some pluses and extras that we found weren't really worth it, or we've looked into it and we're like, that's not something that we would ever think is really truly a value of any kind, too much of anyone. But that's just our opinion.
Not that there's anything wrong with it.
And so what we have on here is what we got?
Well, Two Grumpy People's list of plus-ups and extras that are just not really worth it. And first one is, might annoy you a little, the Pirate or Princess plus-up for your rooms. The Caribbean Beach and a couple others offer these. It's an ordinary room, but they have completely remodeled it to theme it. We stayed at the Pirates room. The theming is very, very nice. They went out of their way to add some little, secret touches here and there. And, I mean, even to the point of having like a little secret code into the pattern that they stamp into the bathtub surround. So they're very nice. However, you have to remember that you're not going to be spending all that terribly much time in your hotel room. Unless you're sick like I was, in which case you don't really care what the bed is you're laying in, you just want it to be soft.
Yeah, you don't care if it's shaped like a pirate ship.
You're just not feeling that well. It's a little expensive for just adding some extra, essentially, decoration. Is really the beds in the room were made to look like actual ships, in 3D, and the artwork and everything. So I have to say they're very nicely done.
It's done. You can tell it's a Disney job.
I just don't see any point in spending all that extra. All the rooms in the hotels are themed anyway. They're just not themed that lavishly.
In my opinion, this is where I have to a little bit on the disagree. I think it was something that's worth doing once if you can afford it. It is a bit expensive, though.
You have to judge the if you can afford it. If I had it to do over, I would say it was not really something we needed to do.
Needed to do? No.
Or I didn't really get that much out of doing it.
Personally, I did, but...
So then that's something that, we kind of disagree with. But, again, it
overall,
kind of falls into the, how much time are you going to spend in that room? And how much money do you really have to spend on that? Is that where you want to spend your money at?
I said you can have whatever you like, yeah.
And then you go into the mid-price or luxury resorts. Should you stay at the value resort, sort of the mid-range, or go all out and stay at one of the luxury resorts? I just assume stay at a value resort most of the time. I have to say, though, that when we stayed at the Port Orleans, I really loved that hotel.
That was even better than the Caribbean Beach, and those are both moderate resorts.
Yeah, they're both moderate. They're not bad. The prices aren't that extremely more, but again, the more days, and the more days you start adding up, the more that slight price difference makes a difference. And again, you have to think about how much time am I going to be in that room
or at that resort.
When we stayed at the Port Orleans, we did actually spend quite a bit of time at the resort. Like we said, we rented the Ski-Doo.
We spent at least 2 days
so
just
we toured
at
the water.
resort.
We also walked around quite a bit and looked around. We spent time in the pools. They had a really elaborate pool that was very busy, that a lot of people liked, with lots of water slides and waterfalls and fountains. And then they had a quieter pool where you could just go and swim and relax quietly. So yeah, and the restaurant there was very nice, as it was at Caribbean Beach. Both of them had very nice dining. So I would say that was worth the money spent.
And a bah humbug to you.
I wasn't as sure that the money was well spent at Caribbean Beach, but I think partly that's influenced by the fact that I wasn't feeling well and also that I was feeling very pressured because of scheduling snafus and things like that. So I didn't enjoy what I otherwise probably would have enjoyed a lot more.
Sounds like someone sick. How lovely. I do hope it's serious. Something dreadful.
When you talk about luxury resorts, I'm not
it's
sure how much.
Stretching it. There's a couple of them that can be worth it, but a lot of them, to me personally, they're getting to be now you're staying at the Ritz-Carlton, and I don't need that at Disney.
Yes. I would say that there are times when they would be the right decision. If it's your honeymoon, you know, because that's a once in a lifetime. I want to make a memory, and you probably actually are going to spend some time in that hotel room enjoying those luxuries.
And then there's a few of them that are so elaborately themed that you could almost find it worthwhile.
I think if I ever got a chance to stay in Cinderella Castle,
that's not even luxury. That's like diamond.
You really can't get that. There's like a ridiculous waiting list, and they give it away as prizes and things like that.
Yeah,
it's just
not really something you can actually book.
But there are some really elaborately done rooms, and like the Contemporary and a couple of the others have some really extravagantly done rooms that might be cool to stay in. If you were going to stay for like a 2 or 3 day whirlwind tour and do everything, that's when I think that might be worthwhile. Most of the time, luxury, you're just spending a lot of extra money for the same room. I mean, does it really matter if it's slightly bigger? You're not holding a party in your room.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. Not at all.
And some of the other amenities that you start getting when you go into the luxuries, you start getting some things you may or may not need. Such as, you know, you're getting toasters, you're getting, you know, room sites concierge, and you're getting, you know, valet parking.
I mean, they're nice. They're really nice. Unless you are Ritz.
Not the Ritz.
Very rich. They're, for the most part, a waste of money. The only one that I would say is not would be the Animal Kingdom Lodge, and that's just because it has the animal experience that is immersive and
the one I'd probably put below that personally is the Boardwalk.
Yeah, and I really want to go stay at the Boardwalk sometime, but that's one I would go to after I had spent many times at Disney already, so that you're not spending all of your time in the parks, and you could really enjoy
that one has
the experience of being at the resort.
Yes, that's definitely one that's worth staying at the resort.
Yeah, I mean, they have the whole Boardwalk setup, so I would want to enjoy that. I would probably want to spend a day or two just doing that.
Yeah.
You know, and rent the little Surrey bike and all of that good stuff. So, and it's on water, so you can rent the boats and blah blah blah.
And then there's a few of them like the Swan and Dolphin that is completely.
I just don't get that at all.
It's like any other hotel anywhere in the world.
It's a luxe hotel, but that's really all it is. A luxe hotel.
That's all it is there for. I mean, there's some nice pools and cabanas around there, but other than that, it's not worth it.
Again, if you're on your honeymoon.
I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss.
You know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But
that's about it.
To me,
I
it doesn't feel
that
Disney.
wouldn't be the one I would choose to go to on my
It
honeymoon.
doesn't feel Disney to me, so.
So beyond upgrading to the mid-price or luxury resort, again, it's a matter of how long you're going to be there, how long you tend to stay in the resort. Generally, a larger size room, slightly larger size bed, not worth it.
And a bah humbug to you.
And then one that I found, and it's actually somewhat disappointing. Some people may not find this surprising, as the tours that stay on stage.
Yeah.
The ones that don't go behind the scenes, really.
I'm Tour Guide Barbie. Please keep your hands, arms, and accessories inside the car and no flash photography. Thank you.
Those ones, they point out some facts and details, most of which you either already knew or are just common knowledge at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's some people who enjoy that. Maybe someone who doesn't have as much time invested in learning about Disney as we do, and so they find those little tidbits of information very interesting. We've already read those same tidbits on numerous websites and in numerous books.
We did one,
or discovered them for ourselves.
I was gonna say, we did one, I think, on our third trip down there, and it was already disappointing. And that was only our third trip there.
Yeah. Anything that you can get to go backstage is always awesome, but the on-stage tours, it depends. I think the ones that where the actual the engineers or the Imagineers, the ones that they lead personally, which you're not going to get very often, those might be worthwhile, or something like that, maybe led by an art director or something like that, where you're going to get insights into their particular field of expertise, especially if you have an interest in those things.
But if it's just a regular tour guide, you're just going to get the same, 15 facts that you can find out anywhere.
Yeah, I would.
Such as, there's this ring embedded in front of the Haunted Mansion. It's actually from an old stanchion, but they're saying it's the ring from the bride. Oh, now they took it out. Now it's back.
Yeah, they tell you all. Oh, look, here's a hidden Mickey. That's not really hidden anymore. It's been published all over the place. Everybody knows about that hidden Mickey. Show me a new one. Yeah, so a lot of that stuff. Oh, look, did you know that Mickey and Goofy appear in the hieroglyphics in the Indiana Jones sequence of the backstage tour?
Yes, you can see it. They're right there.
Yes,
and C-3PO and R2-D2 are right there, too.
Everybody knows that.
It's right there in front of your face.
Which is so funny because that has been reproduced on the line on the net. There's a claim that it was in the actual movie. That was not in the original Indiana Jones.
No. Although I wouldn't be surprised if C-3PO and R2-D2 were.
I wouldn't put it past them, but but it wasn't.
It's their kind of sense of humor that they would do. Now this is one that I do kind of agree with, even though I wouldn't mind doing it once. It's not necessary for how much you have to spend, and that is the reserved seating for Fantasmic.
Right. The reserved seating for Wishes and all the others is worth it, but I think for Fantasmic,
because they built the stage for it, it's a stadium seating.
There's no bad seating in there.
No, there's 3 sections of seating, all of which have their own facing. And they have it set up so that everyone in each section gets a great view. It's stadium seating so that the person behind you, unless someone is really tall sitting in front of you,
or they have a balloon or something in their hand,
then you're not really going to have a
and
blocked
you could just
view.
choose to move unless you come really late to the show, because there's plenty of seating in there unless you come late.
Yes. So there's usually plenty of seating. It's not one where they tell you have to move all the way to the end of your row.
Yeah.
So for those of you who like to just sit in the middle, you're good.
You can go and stake out your seat way in advance. So I don't see a need for it. Again, if you're going to eat at one of those restaurants anyway and they happen to offer it and you want to do that, fine, but it's extra money for a meal that really you don't need to pay. And the reserved
seating isn't at the front like you might expect. It's actually in the back.
And you have to go early.
You have to go way early.
So, I don't know.
So, I mean, if doing it once, maybe, if you're going to eat at one of those restaurants anyways, because it's not that much more. But at the same time, once you've seen it once, it's not worth it.
And I just don't see showing up a half hour to an hour early for the show. Well, if I'm going to do that, why don't I just show up early and pick out the perfect seat and
like we said in another list, it's worth just going right across the street to the Sunset Ranch Market and grab something and then go sit down. You'll have a lot more fun doing that than going to their reservation.
And one person can go and hold the seat while everybody else goes and does whatever last minute stuff they want to do, and yeah. Okay, so I think we agreed then.
If something happens and you don't get to go to Fantasmic, you're out the extra money.
That happened to us. That's why you're saying that.
Happened to us.
Because we specifically got the Hollywood and Vine deal, and I was not feeling really well by the time it came time to go. I didn't have it in me, and the other 2 members of our party were not that interested that particular night either. So we totally missed the show. So we wasted money. Because you can't reuse it another night. It's not like you can get a rain check or something. That would have been nice.
And this is something which is more or less mostly for us, because we don't.
I think it's for a lot of people. It just depends on who you are.
Yeah.
Getting the wine and alcohol addition to the dining plan is a lot of extra money unless you drink wine at every meal or beer at every meal. You are paying a lot of money for nothing.
So in other words, unless you're an alcoholic.
It doesn't cost that much to just order a glass of wine or a glass of beer with your occasional meal if that's what you want. Why spend all that extra to add it onto your meal plan? Unless you're going to the Food and Wine Festival, then it's worth it, and then some.
Yes.
Because you're going to be going through all the worlds of Epcot and tasting all the different, and it's more than worth it then.
Yes.
But otherwise, unless you're a lush or you're one of those people who just can't enjoy a meal and you're going to have all the fancy reservations and you want then it might be worthwhile.
If you're the one that also got the 3 signature meals a day plan.
Yeah.
You know, 3 table service credits instead of getting the one that has the snack credits in there and stuff. Then maybe that might be. If you're already going that far, it's not much further.
Yeah. But for
the
average person
people
who just wants a glass of wine with their meal or beer with their meal, it's not that much more in most of the restaurants to order that than it is to order a soda. There's just not really any reason to add that on.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Bicycle rentals, because even though we've done it at least once,
it's a bit expensive, and
it's not that we found. Even at the one that we did it at, it was at the Port Orleans.
It's not that there is no. The ones that we've walked around, you basically ride the bike on a path that's just as easily walked, and it's just circling the resort. So there's not much to see as far as that goes. I think the only place it might be worthwhile would be like at the campground. Yeah, at the
campgrounds, you have much more
or maybe
trails and things that you can go on.
It's not the best way to spend your money. I mean, it's nice if you get the Surrey bike, but
and a bah humbug to you.
I mean, at least it's not a huge expense, but it's not cheap either, and you pay by the hour. So, in the parks, we've already talked about this before. The rental strollers is an additional cost you don't need.
No,
it is way cheaper to buy a cheap stroller downtown. Just take the city bus. You can catch the city bus from any of the resorts. Go down to Walmart or to any of the stores in town. Pick you up a cheap umbrella stroller, foldable, anywhere from $10 to $40, depending on how nice a one you want. Do you want the extendable little umbrella or whatever to go with it?
You want the double wide or
some
whatever.
of them even have like little beverage, cup holders on them and stuff. Go and pick you one out that you like. Take it back. Even if you get the nicest one that they offer for say $40 or $50, that's one day's rental.
Yeah.
And it's yours to keep or not. You can use it all day, take it back with you to the hotel, use it all day at the resort. You can use it if you go downtown for any reason. And when you leave, if you don't want it anymore, you fold it up. You can leave it in the room. You can donate it to a charity. You can throw it in the trash, leave it on the bus, whatever you want to do with it. Because you've already more than paid the cost from the savings of renting a stroller in the park. And you will be saving our ankles from those plastic tanks that we hate.
Send in the G.I. Joe motorized battle tank.
And the only time that I'd ever say anything against that is maybe if you only need it for a day.
Yeah, if you're only going to be in the park a day and you only have a child that needs it for a day, which is unlikely. But the other way, I mean, I guess if you have like an older child who has, like an impairment or something, so they need to they're going to need something sturdier, obviously. So if you don't already have one that you're bringing with you, that would make sense to rent one for your child like that. But for your average toddler,
and a bah humbug to you.
And believe you me, for those of us walking in those crowds amongst you, it is well appreciated.
Yes, we won't look at you with grimaces.
And it'll be easier for you to maneuver in those crowds, because trying to push one of them plastic tanks around through those crowds and in and out of those little stores, and it's not worth it.
No, and it'll be easier to spot yours too.
Yeah, I mean, and you can get whatever model and color you want, and you can put stickers on it, and you can, attach things to it, and it's yours. You can decorate it. You can let the kids decorate it to make them feel like it's more their own.
Yes, and unlike the Disney ones, which all look the same except for a little plastic flap you can stick something in. They're gonna look different.
Yeah. So to me that's a money suck you do not need to spend. The ECTs, if you need an ECT, it's a necessity and you have to get that. But if you have a choice, go with the wheelchair. And there's 2 reasons for that. One, it's a lot easier to maneuver a wheelchair Again, the size issue is a huge thing. It's a lot, if you can stand for short periods of time and walk for short periods of time, it'll be a lot easier to get on the bus at the end of the day.
Yep.
You won't have to wait for it to beep, 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 and the bus driver has to get off.
And all of us will applaud those of you who get up out of your wheelchair and let us fold it up for you.
Thank you, we love you.
We'll help you on the bus, just let's hurry up.
More people can get on the bus. It's easier for getting on rides and things like that.
Yes.
It's cheaper. It's a lot cheaper to rent a wheelchair.
Yeah, there's no attraction that you won't be able to get on if you ride a wheelchair. Riding ECVs, half of them, if not more than half, will require you to change into a wheelchair anyway.
Yeah, so just save yourself the hassle of having to change.
Yes.
And if you can't, you can actually rent wheelchairs downtown too. Disney does kind of warn you to be careful about some of the operators down there are, they stick you with like deposits and stuff. You have to be careful when you do that. Make sure you get a reputable one, and make sure that it's one that's, that's going to fit with their equipment. But most standard wheelchairs work just fine. And it could probably save you a little bit of money if you're going to be there a while to go ahead and rent it downtown rather than in the park.
Yeah, or at the very least rent it through the resort.
And if you rent in the park, when you get in your car at the end of the day or whatever, you have to give it back.
And a bah humbug to you.
Yes.
That's no good. So I'd go with the wheelchair if you can. If you have to have the ECT, obviously, there's nothing you can do about that. You have to have it. So.
There's anything wrong with that?
And then there's other things that's like, well, it depends on if it's worthwhile, because there are some things that, you could just get yourself from downtown and then bring it with you or whatever.
I would go back to the bibbidi bobbidi, what we were talking about earlier. I personally am not a bibbidi bobbidi person anyway, but if you are, let me explain something to you. Those dresses are extra. The tiara and wand
are
extra. So what I would do as a smart parent is go and buy the dress either online, because most of those costumes are available online, or downtown at a store. Buy a dress, buy a tiara and a wand, take them with you in a little bag, and when she goes in and gets her hair and her makeup done, she puts on her little her costume that you've already bought. It's just as pretty and special, and it costs a way lot less.
And a bah humbug to you.
And it's the same thing with the Pirates League for boys.
Same thing.
The only one that might be a little bit more difficult is if you want to do the prince.
Yeah.
Because prince costumes are not easy to come by.
Yeah, they're harder to find, but you can do it if you
really want to get into it.
And you have time ahead of time to really search for it. Going online is a big one. Go on to the Disney website. You can buy the same dress cheaper on the Disney Parks Online website usually. And go on websites, check out eBay, because a lot of times people sell those things after they're done with their trip. They don't want them anymore.
Yep.
So I think the Disney Vacation Club should fit in this category. I think that should be our number 10.
I'll let you put it in there.
It's a timeshare. Let's be honest, it's a timeshare.
That is true.
And they sell it just as hard as any other timeshare sales people do.
Probably harder.
You can actually buy a home in one of the Disney run properties cheaper than you can buy those Disney clubs. It's worth it if you are a retiree or someone who doesn't work and has money for something like that, which isn't very
Someone
common.
who's going to go more than just to one park, more than just Disney World. If you travel to other Disney places, if you travel to Hawaii,
other places
California,
besides Disney too, but
England or wherever else,
right.
Anything
if you have
that's
time and money
connected.
to travel, it's well worth it.
Yeah.
We're in the money, the sky is sunny. Oh man, depression, you are through, you done us wrong.
If you have time and money to travel a lot, all over the place. Otherwise, please. And even if you want to stay often at Disney, you plan to come there at least annually and stay for a good week or something, there are rental places there at Disney, even places that Disney runs, that they will rent you and it will cost you less than owning a Disney timeshare. They call it a vacation club. It's a timeshare. So I think that's one that belongs on this list of plus-ups or extras not worth it. And that's 10.
Yep. Gives us 10. And I think that'll do it talking about extras and plussing and forgetting things and all kinds of different things. So that'll do it for this week's episode.
Love to save you money, folks. That's what it's all about.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.